It's our community, and I'm so pleased that you're with us. I look forward to our visits every so often so that we can share with one another the interesting and productive and bright people that are our neighbors. And today, Becky Blades has come to visit, and she is, right now she's an author. She's done a lot of things. She was business reputation management. She did creative brand building. She did innovative marketing. She is now an author. And the book title, I just couldn't, I couldn't let alone. It says, "Do Your Laundry or You'll Die Alone." And for many reasons, that may be exactly true. But you were a creative marketer. This is a very creative book, and I want you to see it because it's just fun. And lots of times, fun things are what life is all about. And this is Becky's book. And she is a creative marketer. This is a creative book. So how did you market this book?
It's been really easy because it fills the space of giving something to those kids in launching season, like graduation season. So I just help people find out about it around graduation season. And it was, it wasn't a book that I set out to write. It was actually began life as a journal entry. I was about this time of the year, about 5 or 6 years ago, my oldest daughter started her senior year of high school, and I realized that I hadn't told her everything I needed to tell her.
You always have one more or two things we need to.
Or 70. So I just started writing things down, with just the intention of self-therapy, really, because I think we fret about things that we're not sure of. So I was just processing, have we talked about this? Have I told her this? And as the journal got going, it got humorous because some healing was going on, evidently. And by the time I got finished, she was tucked nicely into her freshman year of college, and I sent her a very long email with a lot of this information. It was about 100 tips. The subtitle of the book is "Advice Your Mom Would Give If She Thought You Were Listening." So kind of the email was, here are some things that you wouldn't slow down for me to tell you. And the subject line on the email was, "Do your laundry or you'll die alone." So she liked the email. She said, "Mom, this is funny. You should put your art in it and make a book out of it." And when your kid gives you a challenge, it's hard to say no. It's kind of a last act of parenting.
Well, this is what you said. You said, as a young woman today, you have skills that seem like superpowers. You can conduct a text argument with your two best friends without breaking parental eye contact. With simple Google search, you can find answers to most of the practical questions that your mom's generation had to phone home for. But what you cannot find on the internet is your mother's voice, the voice that loves you, the voice that wants the best for you, and the voice that can auto-repeat inside your head with tidbits of wisdom. And I think, there is something very profound to a fun book. I think that is true because much of the wisdom and the culture that we live in is generated from parent to child, be it positive or negative. It can be a very negative thing too, but it can be a fun transfer as well. And that's what you have done, is to make it fun for your children. And you have two daughters.
Yeah, right.
Did the second one appreciate as much as the first one?
She did, but she was tired of it by the time it was her time. But the goal that my oldest one, gave me is have it done by the time Tess graduates from high school. So that was my timetable, was to get it done. I think that she gave me 18 months to get it done as a graduation gift. So then, to back to your question about marketing, it was a self-published book to begin with. It was something that I wanted to have to give to my daughter's graduating class and to just just spread to my friends who were going through the same thing. And then it just kind of took off from there. It was a lot of fun on social media, which is how these things
Everybody talks that way. In fact, I just had this conversation with an organization that I belong to, and marketing, they need marketing. And I said, you know what? It's a whole different ballgame now. It's on Google, and it's on Snapchat, and it's on Facebook and LinkedIn. And it's not so much print anymore.
Right. And this really hit a sweet spot in a community that I didn't know existed until I had growing kids. But there's a big support system there for the empty nesters, the empty nesting process, because it's, of course, I was emotional about my own girls leaving. I just have the two. But boy, I did not know what a universal kind of syndrome it is. And you know, at one time I thought about writing a serious book about empty nest syndrome. But after doing some reading, there was a very simple aha that I found, and it was that if we feel like our kids are ready, it's not as painful. It's not as, you know, the season and time is right. But this generation, you know, we don't communicate like we used to, so we don't know if they're ready. We don't know what they're hearing. They're in their phones all the time, and they're hearing other messages.
Well, and they get a lot of messages from their cohort.
Right,
So
and that's when
that you don't
those
know
voices are loud.
Yeah.
So really, that's precisely why I wanted to throw all of these things at them in a quick, short attention span tidbit that kind of fits in their short attention span life.
Well, that's right. But it didn't hurt that you won the best indie book of 2014, and there were only 100 chosen.
That was, yeah, that that helped right off the bat. Thank you. Yes, and then
Now you've had more than one printing, haven't you, of this book?
Yes. In fact, this hardback is a bigger publisher. The first one was a very tiny kind of self-publishing,
Was it paperback?
right?
Mm-hmm.
And then, and this is kind of the dream of all people who self-publish, after the first season, it sold so much, and you can see on Amazon how a book is selling, that a publisher approached me. Sourcebooks, my new publisher, came to me and said, would you like a bigger mainstream publisher? And so they made it a hardback. They asked for a few little tweaks, and now it seems to be selling very well, even though it's been out now 3 years now. Hard to believe. And my youngest is a junior in college, and then the young woman that I wrote it for is now in her first job in New York City.
See,
so
and this got her through.
this got her through. We'll never know, right?
We have to believe.
We have to
believe. Now, you maintain that you are a Stardust. What is that?
A Stardust is a word we coined at my house that's about a beginner, a creator. It came from when I sold my company. My daughter was then kind of little, and she came home and she said, Mom, are you a business person? Are you an artist? Or are you a writer? Because I was doing a lot of different things. And I think my other daughter said, she just starts things. She's a Stardust. So but there's something in that rang true to me. If I want to begin a company or a project, it's very easy for me to do that, and I love it. I don't feel compelled to finish everything I start.
Because what did you say? You started over 1,000 projects and finished what, 200?
72.
72.
I just made up the numbers
Oh.
because I do believe, you know, hauling off and starting something is the best kind of innovative energy. This book started as one thing and it ended up as something else. It started as a journal entry, and each one of the illustrations inside started as its own painting. Who knew that they would eventually live inside the pages of a book? So I think that people who are artists totally get the word Stardustry. Entrepreneurs, for example.
Well, this
there you
one,
go.
here's one of your pieces of art. This is about being a hostess.
Yes, yes, and that's a French, a collage with French artifacts, and really what it says, this woman in this French magazine that I found just looks like she's saying, "Welcome to my world." And the entry is about if you want to make people feel comfortable, act like you own the place. Welcome them, show them the way to the food table.
Now we're getting to the, and here's one. This is black is the new black is the new black. I mean,
and that was a really big painting of a dress. And you know, everybody needs a little black dress.
That's right, because you can just go anywhere.
Right, right. And I wondered, did I tell my daughters that? Have a little black dress. Black is the new black, and black is never out because it was always in.
Well, this is a fun one. This is about park in the shade in the summer and the sunshine in the winter.
Right, it's a little parking space. You can see that car's under the big tree.
They're just fun.
And that one is also one of the more, one of the entries is learn how to drive a stick shift. Now that's a new entry for the new edition. The old edition said, don't worry about parallel parking because they're making cars that will do it for you.
Yes, but you noted that one of your daughters can parallel park.
Okay, she can. But now both of them live in cities where they don't have cars. But don't you think everyone should learn to drive a stick shift?
Oh, I did. I learned on a stick shift. It was on the wheel. And you know, after all these years, once in a while, my foot goes out to hit the clutch. Because there were two, you know, a brake and a clutch. Some of us remember those days. And but even now, occasionally, very occasionally, my foot will go out to hit that clutch, and I think
that's fun. You know what that is. I
That's a
mean,
long
most
time.
kids today don't even know what a clutch is.
No.
And if you were in a lot of countries, they don't even have automatic transmissions in the cars that you can rent. And well, I remember one mom, the idea that for this came from a mom who said, I told my daughters they have to learn to drive a stick shift because what if they get stranded with a boy somewhere and the only car that they could escape in is a stick shift. Right. So whatever, okay, it takes, you know, it'll take an hour to teach her how to drive a stick shift.
You know what really takes time is you have to let the clutch out just at the right place, about halfway, or else the car just goes bump, bump, bump down the street, and it's not fun.
Right, right.
But the other one on that page is kind of good. It says, choose your battles. The fewer the better. Life is not war.
Right.
And it is.
It is.
That is the truth. So I went through here and I picked some of the ones that I liked. And this is number 7.
Okay.
And this says, live and let live. Live well, my dear. Live large. Live out loud. Live with each cell. Live each challenge as if it were a way to prove that you are alive, and live each moment as if there are no do-overs. And then, if you want to, do them over. But sometimes you can't do them over. So I think that... and
the next part of that, and if you think somebody else is living the wrong way and you want to help them, don't. Live and let live.
That's right. That's right. And this says, money is the easiest thing to replace. You can always make more money. Time, relationships, dignity, trust, and reputation, on the other hand, are hard to come by. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And then the next one isn't so serious. It says, wash off your makeup before you go to bed.
Right.
So what's kind of interesting is that you hit the target hard with some, and then you back off a little bit and have some fun, and then you go right back in, just like every parent does.
Right.
And so I noticed that.
Thanks
you
for
kind of let them
that.
rest.
Thanks for noticing.
Let them rest a little bit. Yes.
And you know, it's those things that repeat. You want it repeating in their heads, even if Mom, you've said these things 100 times. It might be 101 that makes it you know, there forever. And don't you have those things that
Well,
your mom
sure.
said that?
Yes. In fact, my son calls them Grandma's homilies. Because she had one for every situation.
I would love to know what some of those
Well,
are.
the bigger they come, the harder they fall. I can
Oh.
just hear her say
Yeah.
that. And well, her best, it wasn't a homily, it was, save your money because you know what happened to the banks in 1929. No, I do not know what happened to the banks. But I can quote almost verbatim what happened to the banks in 1929. We didn't have any money, she said, so you always have to have a little money put away, she said. Always have a little money put away. And it says, here you say, never lie to your mother, and if you do, never think you got away with it.
Amen.
Amen,
Yeah.
that is right. And by the way, number 23 is put the lid back on the milk.
Yes.
So, you know,
Somebody has to say it.
but then in the middle, you've hit it a little harder again and you say, cut people some slack. If we live life full out, we will be wronged and disappointed many times over. Not because people are mean or because we deserve it, but because life for all of us is on the job training.
Mm-hmm.
When did all these things kind of appear in your
I
to
think,
write
you
down?
know, in the course of parenting, we have those things that, you know, your kid gets bullied or your kid is the bully or your kid gets invited or doesn't get invited, and you try to think, what is the lesson? And sometimes you can say something and sometimes you can't. And so, you know, in the course of that senior year of my daughter, as she lived that year, and I really tried to zip it because at that age you
They don't wanna hear
cannot
it.
say, they do not want to hear it, and you want them to want to be around. You don't want them to be
That's right.
worrying about the parent police. So a lot of those things came up that year, and what I wanted my daughter to know as she was going off to college, I knew she would get into a good college and I knew she would get a good education. What I wanted her to know were those things about how to treat people.
And how to live her life in the very best way you could offer it to her as her parent.
Exactly.
So, you know, and what did they think? What did they think of the book? What have they said to you that?
Well, they don't talk about the, you know, the deep parts.
Yeah.
And my husband, who's a great guy and fun and the funniest one in the house.
And the Maytag washing machine.
And the Maytag washing machine. Will say, hey, girls, that's in the book. You shouldn't even, you know, put the lid back on the milk. If anything comes up, replace the toilet paper roll, keep your
You
feet off
forgot
the
to tell
furniture.
them that the paper always goes over the top.
They better know that. Yeah. You know, that's a little controversial. I try to stay away from controversy, doctor. Don't you think?
Well, I don't know.
think
There's
it's-
only one way to do that.
I know it's still being debated on the Facebook. So I have to leave it, you know. There's no politics. It's G-rated.
Well, you said to kind of stay away from politics and religion because they're very sensitive subjects, you said.
Exactly, right. Good.
I read the
you
book.
must be
Oh, I did. I
have
read
a
the book.
great memory too.
I read the book. And I think that some of these things do hit home. Who do you think appreciated more, the number one or number two daughter?
Maybe, I don't think they appreciated it much at all. I'm sorry to say. It's one of these that's good for me, but what I've heard is from other moms, the moms love it. People love buying it to give as a gift, because then they read it, and I don't know if you've noticed, but in the back there's a few blank pages to fill in your own advice.
I did notice that. I was going to talk about that
Yeah.
because we can all see their blank. We can all add.
Right. And so I think the mothers and dads too there's a little therapy for them in reading through it and saying, oh good, at least I'll know somebody's said this. And that's the kind of feedback I get. So I think, well, actually, I've heard sororities reading it together. I've heard graduation, when the girls get together joking and talking about their moms. Now, the oldest one did say that her sorority kept it in their social room, and that they would read it when they missed their moms. So, you know,
Well, and maybe at a bridal shower, they're kind of fun too.
Yeah,
But I
yeah.
think as the girls grow older, they will appreciate more.
I hope so. I think
We
I
always
think
hope
they
so.
will. Well, they're still, they're in that adulting process, so they're figuring out some things on their own, and they maybe want to forget where they heard it the first time.
The first 10 or 15 times.
10 or exactly, exactly.
Well, did you leave anything out? Has anything occurred? Have you written on your blank pages?
Mm-hmm. Well, there are some things like where the toilet paper goes. I can't.
That's another sensitive. You might add that to the one about politics, religion, and where the toilet paper goes.
Right. So there's family-specific things like calling shotgun doesn't always work. If you have little family history things, I think those are. We have something called JBAD rules, which are just being a dad, which mean that anytime even if you're in college or out on your own, if you're getting on an airplane, tell your dad when you get on and when the plane lands safely, because he's just being a dad, he wants to know, or just being a mom. So that's a little family thing.
Uh-huh.
So there really aren't. It was really fun to have the second edition to be able to go through and see if I left anything else.
Did you add much to the second edition?
I added something about consent. I said, yes means yes, no means no, use your words. Because I felt like that was something, just keeping it really short, but that was such a thing in our world today for young women that, and then the publisher asked me to add the thing about the stick shifts. But it's not a complete
Well, but
listing.
Don't you think that's a positive thing? Because I'll bet you that you get suggestions from readers about things to add.
Yes, but some are boring.
Well,
there's nothing boring in here, I think. I tried to keep, there's some tempo and some comic relief. And,
well, I said, you hit it hard and then you pull back and laugh a little bit and then you hit it hard again. Yeah. And I think that I think you have to do that. Even in whatever you're doing, whether you're offering advice to your children or trying to negotiate something, or even in your art. Within the art that you produce as an artist, there are some very serious subjects, I'm sure.
Yeah. Yes. Well, thank you for noticing. That's really was the design of it.
So what? You can do just about anything you want to do. What are you going to do next, or what are you doing?
Well, I'm working on a book called Stardustry. That whole concept of starting what we finish. I have a hypothesis about that book, so that's fun.
Could you say the hypothesis?
The hypothesis is our society shames not finishing so much that people aren't starting things because they're worried they can't finish it perfectly, finish it on time, that it won't end up what it was first meant to be. And if that were the case, I would never have done this book. I would never have made any of those pieces of art that our society holds on to things way too long, like the Internal Revenue Service, because we maybe we need to start things from scratch a little more. So.
Well, I guess the bottom line in what you're saying is there is no shame in failing.
Exactly.
And I think that often, as parents, we try desperately to keep our children from failing, which we should not do.
Exactly. Oh, that's a whole show, isn't it?
And it's character building.
Yes.
Let me tell you.
Yeah. But maybe even the word failing, starting something and pivoting or abandoning, pulling the plug. Why is that fail word attached to that?
Doesn't have to be.
That momism that says it's not what you start, it's what you finish, or don't start it if you can't finish it. I don't think our society is there anymore.
Oh, that was another one my mother used to say, if you can't pay for it, you don't need it.
I might buy that one. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
But it is true, and I think in starting things, we don't want to hurt anybody else or cost anybody else their money or do anything. But I think in starting projects, we always learn something.
Exactly.
And if we take the lesson learned, maybe by reinventing that project, it will be a project that you can bring to fruition. I mean, you know, not
Exactly.
finishing does not mean it's all gone forever.
Exactly. It, you know, the story of the Post-it note being a project that was glue, they wanted the most permanent glue, and it turned out to be the most temporary glue. Um, Starting is a stage, and it should be honored and celebrated, and it's the most exciting part of a project. So we'll just do a little. I'm just going to do a little research and have
Well,
some fun
number
with that.
68 says, life will not grade you, but it will test you.
Yes.
And that's
Isn't
really
that
what
a
we're
good one?
talking about,
Right.
you see. And
Yeah.
I think that I think that in our desire for our children to be perfect, we try to arrange their lives so that that will happen, and it doesn't work.
Right. And we've decided what success is, you know, whether it's grades or going to a certain college or finishing in a certain amount of time. And, you know, adulting is about not letting that be decided for you.
Exactly. And I think that I think that it isn't possible, as you know, my child is 49 years old, and I have had a lot of time to observe, and I see him say some of the things I said to him, but he wouldn't admit that. He wouldn't
Right.
admit that that's where he heard it first, and that's okay.
Yeah.
Because something does rub off, and but you cannot guide a child's life past a certain point. You just have to quit and hope that you have done what you needed to do to get them on the road that you would like for them to travel, or the road that they can travel, because each child is different.
Right.
Both of your daughters
Yeah.
are different. I'm sure they
They're
are.
very different. Yes. And our momisms are suggestions, and they will kind of see how life falls into those little buckets.
Yeah.
And I say, you know, parenting never ends, so might as well get your values
Do you
down.
have a favorite piece of advice that you put in this book, or
Well,
two?
I like to say that I would have written the whole book to have put in one, I can't remember the number, but it's pocket your cell phone during meals. And it says something like, if you're dining alone, that's one thing. But if you're dining with other people, put it in your purse, turn it off, have a conversation, because and that was something that was a big topic at our house. And you would go
And
to
it
the
should
school
be a topic.
cafeteria, and
And
you
nobody
know,
talks.
yeah,
Nobody talks.
yeah. But my girls are better at that than most, I think.
I think so, because you insisted. But I think that Becky wrote her best bottom line, and she says, most important, our children know what's important. They know that they are loved, and they know that if they ask nicely, I will always do their laundry. So Becky, it has been such fun having you, and try
Thank you
the
so
book.
much.
I think you will enjoy what Becky has to say, and perhaps pass a few things on. Thanks for being with us. Thank you, Becky Blades.
Thank you, Dr.
And thank you for writing a book that gave me some smiles.
Thank you.
See you soon.